Hello champions and future champions, hello Chessmood family. In the opening part, often our opponents are playing a move which is out from our opening preparation, or are choosing a very strange move order and we don't know what to do. Should we transpose simply to our variations or try to find the downside? About this topic we will speak today. I have prepared for you some illustrative examples. Let's go, I will show you them. After d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, b5, the Benko Gambit, and after cb5, a6, ba6, bishop a6, here black sacrificed a pawn, and in the future they are going to get compensation with a and b half pawn lines using their bishop on g7. And after knight c3, d6, knight f3, g6, here the main line goes in the theory with e4, and after bishop f1, king f1, bishop g7, g3, short castle, king g2, and so on. In one of my students' games, opponent played here g3, the second main move, and after bishop g7 there is bishop g2, short castle, and another big theory. But what did in the game white player? They played g3, and after bishop g7 they played e4. Some very strange move order, playing with g3 and e4, and in the game my student, without thinking much, he just took on f1, and after king f1, short castle, king g2, he transposed to the main line, which he had preparation, and he didn't mind that opponent chose a very strange order. Instead of playing here e4, bishop f1, king f1, and then g3, king g2, white played g3 and now e4. What you should do in such cases? Often, really, opponent will choose a strange move order, but you will find out that there are not much you can do and transpose to the main variations. But often there will be some downsides in opponent's move order, so at least you should stop and try to find some difference. Here in this case there is a difference, and here black has a great option. I offer you to pause the video and think a bit. Okay. If you haven't watched the Benko Gambit course and you have never played Benko, you might find it tough to feel any difference. So I will help you a bit, and even if you watch the course, I will remind you one idea. In the variation after e4, bishop f1, king f1, bishop g7, g3, castle, king g2. So in these positions we found in the course that it's very good for black side to exchange the queens. This is strange, right? We are pawn down and we want to exchange the queens, but here is what's the idea behind of this. The thing is that anyway, our compensation is not related with opponent king, so we keep the queens to try to create some attack, but our compensation is positional, using the A and B lines. And for example, after queen b6, the advanced move which I showed in the course, after queen e2 we want to exchange the queens. What is happening? After exchanging the queens, now the queen is not defending the c2 and d3 squares, where can go our knight. Additionally, when we play knight b4, rook fb8, knight d3, here there is no queen on e2 and it's not defending the b2 pawn. If we play also knight g4, these two knights are going to attack the f2 pawn. And here we see how important was white's queen on e2. So this is a very important idea to know. If you play Benko Gambit, exchanging the queens is good for black. Now let's go back to the example when white played g3, bishop g7, e4. And here what we can do. Instead of playing bishop f1 and just simply transposing to our variations, black here has a very interesting option, queen c8. What is happening? White played g3 and e4, both of the moves, and if white here goes bishop g2, they cannot go castle because our bishop on a6 is not allowing that option. What can do white? If they take bishop a6, they will take queen a6, and again white cannot castle, and our queen on a6 is doing not a bad job, right? In future it can support the knight moves, it can support at some point knight d7, knight g4, knight e5, going to d3, and if white offers queen exchange, we know already that it's good for us. After queen c8, if white plays bishop e2, what we can do? After bishop e2, queen e2, white cannot take knight e2 because the knight is defending the e4 pawn. And after queen e2, we first can play queen a6, offering exchanging the queens. Or another option, also very interesting, queen h3. not allowing white to castle. From our side, we want to castle, develop the knight and play rook fb8, and white king will be in the center. If white plays queen f1, we don't mind exchanging the queens, right? And if knight g5, again we can play queen g4 or queen h5, offering exchanging the queens, or even go to queen g2. If white rook moves, he'll take the h2 pawn, and after queen f3, you know already that exchanging the queens is good for black. So, after white played g3, bishop g7 and d4, a dubious move order, there is a way for black. Try to find difference and play queen c8. By the way, queen a5 is also an additional option. So, here before immediately taking on f1, it would be good to stop and try to find any difference. Let's go, I'll show you one more example. In the Maroczy Bind, after e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, take, g6, so it starts with accelerated dragon, and white can choose here to play c4, going to Maroczy Bind, and there is this variation after knight f6. A knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e2, d6, bishop e3, and so on. But white in the game, instead of playing knight c3, choose to play f3, and after bishop g7, bishop e3. So white started first with f3, bishop e3 without knight c3. Now what would you do in your game if you face this? Would you play here d6 and go short castle, transposing to your main variations, or something else? I recommend you to pause the video and think a bit. Okay, champions. Often there will be cases when you will look at the position and there is no difference. But first of all, think what downsides can has opponent's move order. In this case, when white played bishop e3 instead of knight c3, what is happening? Now their b2 pawn is weakened because the bishop is not on c1 and is not defended. Now what if you play queen b6? With this move, we are not just attacking the b2 pawn, but also hidden way we are attacking the d4 knight. The next move, we are threatening to take on e4 or to play knight g4. In both cases, we are going to open the bishop on g7, and now with 3 pieces going to attack the knight on d4. So after we play queen b6, let's say white plays queen d2, defending the b2 pawn. Here both knight g4 and knight e4 moves are working. Let's say knight e4. After f4, we'll take the d4 and be pawn up. If knight c6, we can do different things here. Easier one is just knight d2. We take opponent queen. Opponent takes our queen, and we can take here a b6, we can take bc6, we can take dc6. We can check out very fast that here all the pieces are equal. We have 3, opponent also has 3. Now opponent's bishop on b6 is hanging, and the b2 pawn also is hanging. Additionally, we are pawn up. So what can do opponent after queen b6? Well, if we try somehow to defend the b2, we have knight e4 and knight g4, these two things. The only thing is knight f5. Now our queen hangs and also the bishop on g7, but we can take queen b2. And after knight g7, king f8, now a1, rook we want to take, and after knight d2, king g7, here we have interesting position. We are a pawn up, but we are missing our important bishop on g7, so definitely white is going to have some compensation. But it's not just we won the b2 pawn. With winning the b2 pawn, opponent's c4 pawn also became very weak. So in the future, with playing at some point d6, bishop e6, rook c8, knight a5, we are going to put big pressure on c4 pawn too. So this is good or not? Should we go queen b6 or not? Already up to you how you evaluate the knight f5, knight g7 position. Do you like to give opponents the initiative, or you want to keep straight with d6? But at least before just transposing to your variations, you should consider if you can find some difference and punish opponent for his wrong move order. At the end of today's lesson, I have a homework for you. Recently, in one of our Chessmood tournaments for pro members, this game happened. c4, c5, e4, knight c6, knight c3, g6, g3, bishop g7, and here bishop g2 is white's main move, which was covered in the course, and during the tournament we were testing this position. White played knight ge2. Instead of standard bishop g2, white started with knight ge2. So here, can we find any difference than just playing d6, e6, one of these moves which was covered in the course, or a6 with rook b8? or there is something else we can use to try to punish opponents' wrong move order? You can post your answers in the comments section. And I'm looking forward to seeing you during the next daily lessons. Thank you for all your support and see you soon.